Now, how did the court decide this case? Held. The federal election day statutes do not prevent Mississippi from counting absentee ballots postmarked by election day, but received up to 5 days thereafter. Nothing in the federal election day statute requires ballots to be received by election day. Now, the majority of the court sees election day as the day ballots are cast, as opposed to the dissenting judges who wrote, "Having considered text, legal context, and historical practice, I turn to precedent. Although few judicial decisions interpret the election day statutes, those precedents favor respondents' position. The dissenters believe that election day is not complete without the receipt of the ballots. However, since it is the majority who decides the case, their viewpoint wins the day. The framers recognized the difficulty of crafting election laws applicable to every probable change in the situation of the country." That's from Federalist 59. So instead of constitutionalizing election law, they decided that a discretionary power over elections needed to be lodged somewhere. Suffice it to say that power is not lodged in the court. The election day statutes say nothing about ballot receipt, and we cannot add to the words Congress chose. The judgment of the Court of Appeals is reversed, and the case is remanded for further proceeding consistent with this opinion. It is so ordered. Now, how do I view the case? I've been leaning against the Mississippi law since the beginning of the case, but not primarily because of the election day controversy. Mail-in ballots have a lot of security issues, which is why I have only mailed a ballot once in my life, when I was out of state for weeks before the election. With the efficacy of the postal system, I'm wondering why people need to wait until the election day to cast their ballot. It's like playing chicken with your civic duty. And since the mail-in ballots are mailed to the person one business day after they are successfully requested, I don't see the logic behind waiting to the last day to cast it. On the other hand, I do see some of the logic of the majority of the court. The Constitution places the responsibility for setting the time, place, and manner of electing members of the U.S. House and Senate squarely in the hands of the states. Yes, Congress can modify most of those laws, but the idea was clearly for the states to control the elections. That is what Mississippi has done, but there's a problem. The law specifies a date for election and does not distinguish between the casting of votes and their collection. As Justice Alito pointed out, that's because it was only recently that there was an opportunity to distinguish between those two events. So to determine my opinion about this case, I use Occam's razor, the idea that the simplest solution is probably the best. Election is defined as the act or process of electing someone to fill an office or position. Since the act or process of electing someone to fill an office or position requires not only the casting of ballots, but their collection and counting, election day must include all three parts of the process. While the majority focus on casting of mail-in ballots being the day they enter the postal system, they ignore the plain definition of the term cast as related to ballots. To deposit or indicate a ballot or vote. When someone deposits their ballot in the mail, have they truly deposited them to be counted or merely to be delivered? Ultimately, since mail-in absentee balloting is an accommodation under Mississippi law, I do not think it's unreasonable to ask that the ballots be delivered by election day. But Mississippi gets to set its own time, place, and manner for elections of House and Senate. The real problem is the state's duty to appoint electors for president and vice president by election day. That means if Mississippi wishes to persist in a popular election to determine those electors, those ballots need to be in and counted by election day. And since the Constitution delegates to Congress the power to determine the time of choosing electors, Mississippi cannot change that, even by law.